Hello everyone, so we are back to talk about a new release from Radiance Films. Iphigenia. It's from 1977, a wonderful piece of Greek cinema. I, for me, the Greek islands have a big place in my heart. I adore Greece. But I've never really delved into any Greek cinema, so I thought when I got wind of this coming up, I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to make my first foray into Greek cinema. And I was one of the big selling points for me straight away. Irene Papas, I love her as an actress. Of course, she, while being Greek, she did a wonderful, wonderful job of achieving international fame, notoriety, stardom. She's been in so many things. Of course, Greek, often films set in Greece, like The Moon Spinners, Zorba the Greek, Guns of Navarone, and other things like High Season and Captain Corelli's Mandolin. But I've got to say, on a personal note, there was one disappointment I did have. I was kind of hoping that she would have been able to appear in Escape to Athena. That would have been great to see her in that one, but unfortunately, that didn't materialise. But yeah, when I first got wind that this was coming out, I thought, right, looks like a fantastic piece of Greek cinema. Irene Papas in one of the lead roles. Let's get it. Was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards, nominated for the Palme d'Or, the Cannes Film Festival. And yes, I went into this, watched it this morning, went into it cold. Obviously, looked into the story, connected to, you know, um, the whole legend of Troy. So this takes place before the Greeks sail to Troy. They've decided they're going to declare war, but they've assembled their armies, they've assembled the ships, but they're waiting for the right conditions so that they can safely sail. So when we open up, the Greek armies, they're not in the best shape. They've been basically waiting and waiting and waiting, and they finally want something. They finally want action to be taken, and the Agamemnon is visited by one of the so-called oracles, and he's given, you know, the gods demand a sacrifice according to this oracle, and the sacrifice of your daughter. So then Agamemnon's stuck between a rock and a hard place, got this incredible dilemma. Obviously, my daughter, who I absolutely adore and who adores me, but then I've got the whole Greek army breathing down my neck. They want blood. They want to set sail on Troy. What do I do? It's great. It's a great film. It's a magnificent film. Again, it's one of those films that it's all about the performances. Everybody involved delivers first class performances. It is a slow burn, absolutely it is. This runs, yeah, 2 hours, nearly 2 hours 10 minutes. Yeah, it takes its time to breathe. It absolutely does. But then when things get rolling, as we get into the second half of the film, like when Irene Papas fully comes into it, because obviously she's Agamemnon's wife and the mother of Iphigenia, and she finds out what is actually going down, because Agamemnon summons his daughter on the pretense of he's arranged a marriage to Achilles. So it's fantastic. Again, the performances all around. I mean, I always want to talk about Irene Papas any chance I get. I adore her. Again, another magnificent film that she was in. Don't Torture a Duckling. Now that was one of those, because she only plays a small role in that, but that's just that was just great to see her being part of that. But it just goes to show again that thing of whatever capacity you need, Irene Pappas, whether it's a smaller supporting role like that in Don't Torture a Duckling, or something here like Iphigenia, where she's, you know, she's front and centre, albeit in the second half of the film, when she properly comes into it. She, whatever capacity she's involved in, or how she's just one of those. She's a consistently reliable, consistently great performer. And just what's absolutely magnificent about her is just she's got this incredibly strong presence on screen. It's again, it's that Greek. You know what I mean? It's that Greek spirit. She's just very strong, very powerful, very confident. The way she carries herself, the way she delivers, and she goes through all the range of emotions. She has those parts where she's very like composed, very stoic, but she has some really emotional outbursts as this goes on. And of course, she's got the magnificent eyes. She says a lot with her eyes. Some of the ways, some of the moments where she just glares daggers at Agamemnon. And again, she has some wonderfully emotional stuff towards the end with the daughter. When the daughter's being basically torn away. Well, I say torn away. It initially plays out that way, but then what's so wonderful is when the daughter basically takes stock of the situation and assesses it, and then she resigns herself to the fact. She has a wonderful line saying the death's going to be, words to the effect, is going to be honourable, it's going to be dignified, it's going to be beautiful, that's how I'm going to choose to die. It's very, very well done, and what a wonderful character Iphigenia is, because she's there. Um, she's there. Often, it's one of those, certainly in the early half of the film, she's more talked about than she's actually on screen. Obviously, as we build up to the latter half of the movie, she comes more and more into focus. But wonderful actress. But what a wonderful character. A very beyond her years. In terms of the character's wisdom and her outlook on things. The way she talks to her dad, and then the way she talks to her mother. Um, she can see that she's far beyond. They do a wonderful job as well. Agamemnon is played as I don't want to say he's played as an ineffectual leader, but he's played very sympathetic. You can tell that this is a guy who's just, you know, he's under tremendous pressure. And again, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place and he doesn't know what to do. He's put in an impossible situation. But you contrast it with the way that Brian Cox played the cat. Again, Jesus. We're going to talk about the 2004 Troy. Right, so you look at the way that Brian Cox plays it. And again, yeah, he's a villain through and through. Uh, but here, yeah, the character's much more sympathetic, and again, not even as confident, grandiose as Brian Cox plays the character. Also, Menelaus, his brother, the way that character's depicted in this, a very, very good character. Again, the characterizations are interesting because no one's one thing or the other in this. Because Menelaus as well, because initially we're presented, okay, he's the we were kind of led to believe, he's the manipulator, and he's the instigator. Well, no, Helen of Troy's the instigator. Diane Kruger ran off with Orlando Bloom, didn't she? And then all of this got set into motion. So yeah, fair enough, Menelaus got the ball rolling on the whole thing. So if you were to say so and so's the villain of the piece, maybe Menelaus is, but even then, as things go on, he's presented in a way that it's not black and white. And this is all shades of grey. But the interplay, obviously, it's a very dial. Well, it's interesting because there's scenes that are where we have long shots of quiet scenes, but then we get into chunks of the movie where it becomes very dialogue heavy but there's a whole chunk of the movie, maybe as we're getting towards the midsection, where it's back and forth between Agamemnon and Menelaus. And again, that's just two wonderful performances. The interplay between the two and the back and forth, they kind of go through a whole arc throughout the course of this dialogue. It's very, very well done, and you know, it really does suck you in. I mean, that might be one of the criticisms in the early going. It's slow burn, and it takes a while to get going, but when it does, it's very, very good. There you go. In terms of when we're talking about who is the real villain of the piece, there's an argument to be made that maybe Odysseus is, because he's kind of quite something of an instigator, and then when he hears about the prophecy, about the sacrifice that has to be made, he's chomping at the bit essentially. He's rallying the troops, and the characterization of Achilles in this is interesting because it's very different. Very different from Brad Pitt. Do you remember when Brad Pitt was going through his serious phase? Yeah, he used to be so boring. I'm glad we had like Bullet Train era Brad Pitt. And then that carried on into Once Upon a Time. Well, I think he started getting a better sense of humour around the time he did Inglorious Bastards with Quentin Tarantino. It's like, okay, Brad Pitt's kind of getting a sense of humour now. And then, yeah, we get Bullet Train, we get Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we get F1. And then obviously we're getting The Adventures of Cliff Booth. But yeah, you rewind back to 2004, you're a Brad Pitt. He's taking himself very seriously. Good lord. Eric Banner should have won that fight. Hector should have won. But yeah, the portrayal we get of Achilles in this one, it's interesting. And again, he comes into it in the latter half because he knows nothing about what's going on, and then he's suddenly dropped on him by Irene Papas. So, oh, you're my son-in-law to be, and said, I beg your pardon. Um, Not quite so British about the whole thing. But yeah, he's again a very, very interesting characterization, kind of different from what we've seen. Again, you might say this is maybe when you put these characters in the hands of a Greek filmmaker, that's gonna happen. Then when you Americanize it, well, is it Wolfgang Peterson who did Troy? I don't know. Maybe. It certainly wasn't Christopher Nolan, but hey, we're not going to talk about what Christopher Nolan's got in store. It's probably best to leave that. Leave that off to the side. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there'll be different characterizations again. Um, yeah. Um, I can put you at ease and say there's no John Leguizamo in this movie though. So that might be a selling point for this. This will be one thing this movie will have over the Odyssey at the very least. But yeah, it's a really wonderful dramatic piece, and what's nice as well, I love the Greek islands, and you get some wonderful, wonderful shots of the landscapes, and you get some gorgeous shots of the out, looking out to sea, and shots of the sunrises and the sunsets. It's beautiful, really, really beautiful. Um, but it packs an emotional punch. It absolutely does. And again, a lot of the heavy lifting in the final part of the film is done by Irene Papas and the wonderful young actress again who plays Iphigenia. She does a tremendous job. Um, like such a young actress, but the way she captures that like age, the beyond her years. There we go. Just feel as though it's only right. I actually imagine that. Actually, look up the names of the people you're talking about. So, Irene Pappas, Costa Kazakos as Agamemnon, Costa Karis as Menelaus, and then Tatiana Papamoshu as Iphigenia. Um, Wonderful little booklet that's been included by Radiance Films with the Blu-ray. But yeah, exceptional performances. You know, when you sit down and you watch something and you feel, yeah, this is something special. You know, you get that feeling from time to time. Like when I sat down and watched The Mission for the first time, when I sat down and watched Hero, something like Sorcerer, The Exorcist, Suspiria, Lisa and the Devil, films like that. You know, you feel like there's certain films that, you know, elevate and you feel that they really can be considered pieces of art. Of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, most certainly, which I think for me, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is certainly the greatest achievement in cinema that we've had. But it's just, again, a wonderful, wonderful piece. And so glad that, you know, we've got this is another example of the great work that these boutique labels are doing, releasing all of these kinds of films. Of course, I've been focusing more on the Hong Kong cinema releases, but the fact that we're getting stuff like this as well along the way, it's wonderful. So thank you, Radiance Films, again. If you've got this film, if you've added it to your collection, if you're a fan of the film, please feel free to share your thoughts. They've done a beautiful restoration job as well. The picture and sound are great, although it's not unfair to say that you can still see the age of the film, and there are little moments where there might be the occasional dip in quality, but overall it does look lovely, and they've done a great job. Again, Radiance, it's a label that I only occasionally like. I got their two Dyer Gothic box sets, and I got A Moment of Romance, the Andy Lau film. But yeah, this is again just occasionally Radiance. They are very interesting in terms of the stuff that they release. But this is another great job by them. Yeah, Iphigenia, wonderful, wonderful film. And again, makes my heart smile because, you know, inside Greece has it has a major place in my heart. So being able to own a piece of Greek cinema as wonderful as this. But yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't heard of it and you do like your dramatic, and if you're interested in Greek mythology as well, of course, yeah, you know, this is definitely worth your time. But that pretty much wraps this up for me, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.